Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the faculty's lecture series, Architecture and Design for Society 2024. Okay, this series is a recurring academic event held monthly, featuring 1 to 2 sessions per month. The series brings together esteemed speakers from diverse disciplines, both nationally and internationally, to share their expertise, insights, and experiences on design and research that address social challenges and contribute to the betterment of our community. I want to highlight that the participants who attend more than 80% of lectures throughout the academic year will receive a certificate of completion. And this certificate can also be used as a part of a credit bank for credit transfer when enrolling in programs at the Faculty of Architecture, Chulalongkorn University. We'd like to extend our gratitude to Nippon Paint Decorative Coating Thailand Company Limited and Sakutai Company Limited and Woodmark Thailand Company Limited for their generous support in making this event possible. Additionally, we sincerely thank Korean Cultural Center for organizing this amazing lecture and bringing us this inspiring opportunity. Shall we? Okay, now it's my honor to invite Dean, Assistant Professor Sarayu Sapsuk to officially open today's session.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome again to Faculty of Architecture, Chulalongkorn University. So today is a great honor to have our Professor Hyunjoon to giving us a lecture here by the Korean Cultural Center. Today's topic is very interesting. We're talking about architecture's origin from human. And I don't know why, when we're starting to have a lot of architecture, we're starting to get sick from the architecture. Some of you may heard about building 6 syndromes or urban 6 syndrome. That's happened when we have architecture and urban here. Even the architect means to build, to help us, to comfort us in the space that we want to create. Today's topic is about the spatial prescriptions. If we relate it to Thai phrase, we may call it pit kya pit, or it's a poison to kill the poisons. So now I think it's very interesting to use architecture to cure people from sick building syndrome. So before we starting that, I would like to thank you, our sponsor, the Nippon Paint, School Thais, and also the Korean Cultural Center, to helping us to invite Professor Hyunjoon to have him here. Professor Hyunjoon is not only a founder of Hyunjoon Architects, right?
Yeah.
He's also teaching in the Hongik University. Yeah. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Is right? Yes? Okay. Yeah. So I think more than that, after this lecture, maybe we could have some relationships between Chulalongkorn University with Hongik University in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, now let me introduce today's amazing speaker. Ajahn Sarayu already introduced him a little bit, but I prepared to deliver a bit more information. Professor Hyunjoon, he is one of the most prominent architects and thought leader in contemporary architecture design. Professor Yu is a principal architect at Hyunjoon Architects and also a professor at Hongik University, the top arts and architecture school in South Korea. Beyond his architectural achievement, Professor Yu is a best-selling author and a respected voice in Korean media, making architecture accessible and relevant to all. At our faculty, there are 2 Koreans, including me and 1 more student. Yeah, she's here. Both of us are very big fan of him, so we were very excited for this opportunity. I brought his book and I already got signed. So I'm very happy to share this opportunity to all our faculty member and also students. Okay, please join me in welcoming Professor Hyunjoon.
네, 감사합니다. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to have a lecture in Chulalongkorn University. I heard that this university is the best in Thailand, and I come here earlier and then take a walk in the campus. But it was beautiful campus, and I'm really happy to share my thoughts about architecture with the prominent architecture students here. So mostly it's a spatial prescription is based on we are the cure for the society as an architect. That's the main concept. When I was 20s, I was thinking that as an architecture students, I always thinking about the space because we are the one who dealing with the space in architecture piece. So my question is, what is space? But during the 1990s, the Time magazine showed this cover. It was the internet era because everybody was talking about the internet space, and at the time we called it cyberspace. But I was wondering why do we call it space? Because when I look at the internet, it's only all bunch of the text and just a couple of hyperlinks. We click some letters and then turn into the other pages, but it's all about the text. But the people still call it space. And when I look at the Yahoo, there was the most prominent the searching engine at the time. There was only 466 art website, and for the business, only 6,400 website. It was very few, and but still people are call it space. But at some point in 1994, I was traveling in Rome during the summer, but the weather was so hot, so I found some coolest place, which is a church, and I go into this place and just walk inside of the church, and then suddenly I look up and I look at the ceiling. I was so shocked because I see there's some space from this painting. I thought I saw some space through in the sky, and there's a heaven space. So I realized that the space is just a byproduct of the human's brain perceive. So that was the main idea. The architecture space is not real. It can be some kind of a brain processing perceived product. So when you look at some papers and the triangle and the circle and square on the paper, we see the differences among them. But as a triangle sees the circle, and then when the triangle sees the square, they see only the line. Because they are the two-dimensional beings, so when they perceive the word, they see it as a one-dimensional being. So we can recognize the differences because we are the three-dimensional being. So we can see the differences in the two-dimensional being. So n-dimensional being can fully perceive only n-1 dimension or less. But the curious thing is we are three-dimensional being and the space is also three-dimensional being, but we still can perceive the space. So I'm thinking about that for some time, and then I realized that that's because we have a short-term memory. So we collect all the visual information through our eye and capturing the images on the retina and then turn that image into some electric signal and send it to the brain, and brain also processing all those kind of information and making a sense of space. So when we born in this world, we see the world through some framework of the space and time. So automatically our brain making the space sense. So this is how we perceive or how we making the sense of space. So we processing 200 images per second. You might have this experience when you look at some bicycle wheel and making a rotation on the clockwise and moving, and it gets slower, and suddenly it is rotating the counterclockwise, and it's slower, and again, it's rotating the clockwise. That's because our brain processing 200 images per second, but at a certain point, they just combining the counterclockwise images. So I realized that the reality is based on the 200 images per second, and the movie was made of 36 or 24 images per second, and animation film is 16 frames per second, and the cartoon is like a cartoon book is 1 frame per second, and the internet is like 1 images every 4 or 5 seconds. But still, we collecting those images, even though that's the only text images, that information goes to our brain and making us some sense of space. So my conclusion was space is information. So during 1994, I wrote a thesis at MIT, and the title was Infotecture, which is a combination of information plus architecture. So based on this theory, I think that space is not an absolute physical quantity, but the sum of all memories. So it is very important where we spend the time. After the invention of the smartphone, we spend much time in the cyberspace, which is online space, but at the same time, we spend the time in the offline space. So those kind of memories and information making our reality. So architect actually has to think about the online space and at the same time offline space as well. But that doesn't give me the sense of how do we design it. So I was thinking that what is the true power of architecture? So some people say that architecture is art. Is architecture art? But in my mind, art is something to touch my mind and give us some special emotion kind of things. So when I look at the Van Gogh's painting, it gave me some emotion changes. And sometimes great painting change our way of thinking or changing the perspective as well. And some music actually touches our mind, and there's some sculpture as well. So when you look at Gaudí's architecture, it actually shows the sculptural values. So it's more like art. And then when I look at the pyramid, the size of the pyramid actually impressed me and touches my mind. So that's, at a certain point, architecture can be an art. But architecture is not actually totally art. Some people say that the architecture is about the technology, and for some people, architecture is about the real estate, it's about money. So architecture has the whole broad meaning of spectrum. So I believe that the art and architecture has some kind of intersection. So that's why some part of the architecture can be perceived as an art, but it's not all about the architecture. Architecture is beyond art. So what is the true power of architecture? I believe architecture is to design relationship. For example, there is a people and another people. If we're locating some wall in between, we actually disconnect the relationship between two people. But if we're making a window, they can see each other. If we're making a door, they can just go and come back. So they have a very strong relationship. And also, if we have changes in levels, it's disconnected. But if we're making a stair, they can be communicating and they have a relationship. And if we're making a wall surrounding us, we can make a private space. Or sometimes we can just making a roof to defining the sense of space. And if we're making some higher position by using the architecture, just like a ziggurat, and then on the top of the ziggurat actually have a more power than the location at the bottom. That's why the penthouse in the apartment is much expensive than the lower units. Its higher level gives more power to the people. So all this kind of diversity, the biodiversity is actually created by the variation of the order of the DNA bases, such as A, G, T, and C. So only 4 bases combining in a different variation of the sequence, they're making a whole different kinds of biodiversity. Just like that, in architecture, is we have so many diversities in architecture, but all this architecture actually defined or designed by the wall, window, roof, doors, and stairs. Such kind of architectural elements, and the 3-dimensional combination of these architectural elements making a space and that space defining the relationship inside of the architecture or the people inside the architecture and outside. So architects actually orchestrates the relationship. That's the real power of architect. There are lots of conflict in the society, and that if we do better, we can solve those kind of conflict or the social problems by making some architectural space. So I believe that that kind of hardware created by the architect can cure the social problems in many ways. So based on that ideas, I will show you some of my students' work. And this is, I'll call it air fishnet plaza. So I'm making some piece is composed of fishnet with the tube structure. And it's right beneath the water surface. So when I designed these things, I was thinking about the images of in Bible, Jesus was walking on the surface of the water. So what if we can create something like that? And I want to making some architecture is communicating with the people. So if we make this kind of structure right underneath the water surface in the sea, the wind comes and making a wave, and that makes the shape of the contour line of this plaza. But when you go step on it, and it sinks because of our weight. So if you are heavyweight, it sink more. And the people actually surround us. Some of your friends maybe come to you and talk to you, and the people gather it heavier and they sink more. But if you are short or if you cannot swim, if the water level rise, you feel uncomfortable and then you're just walking away. So they can rise up again. So the contour of this plaza is defined by the people's relation or the nature factor, or how he can swim or not, or some height issues. All these kind of variation factors changing these contours. So architecture is working as a medium to connecting all these kind of people and is constantly changing. The next project is about the Harvard University student theater. This one is the theater for the students, but when you participating on the actor, you can play and then you can standing on the stage, which is a very special experience. But most of times students just participating theater as an audience. So I want to give all the students be a part of the actor. So what I did was locating the stage right by the street and make the facade transparent. So whenever just the students just passing by this facade, they have an experience to standing on the stage. So which is the kind of reverse relationship. Most of the theaters, the stage is in the far back of the theater. So if we just reversing the location of the stage, we can creating a different sense of experience. The next one is some international competition that how do we making a new library for a new era. I believe that there was like a 2001 or something. So what I did was, it was before the invention of the smartphone. So I located hundreds the computer terminals at the basement, and the people go inside and then finding their information, whatever they want. And that image is actually projected on the ceiling, and the roof space is made of glass. This was the Shinkanchi glass competition, so everybody has to use the glass material. So this urban square made of a glass surface and it captures the images. That means whenever people go on the top of this square, they are sitting in the literally sea of information. So that was the idea of that. So I believe that the architecture is the design relationship. That good architecture brings the harmony among people or in the society. So this is our office motto. Architecture is to design relationship, and we seek to create harmony among people and with nature through new architectural visions. This is our goal. And then we have to think about what is design. Design is the result of problem solving. When you look at the nature, every design of the nature is defined by the problem solving. When you look at the trees in the world looks very similar. Every tree's branches actually goes narrower as goes up, because that's the most stable in terms of structure. And this shape is made because of to survive for trees to survive it, they have to maximize the surface of the leaf to making most of the photosynthesis. So the branches actually split it as goes on, and then making a space in between. That allows us allow the wind penetrating through the trees. So that's what preventing from the fall down in a very heavy wind situation. And when the climate changes, for example, in the desert, the moisture is very important. They need to minimize the vaporization from the leaf. So they change the leaf into the thorn in the cactus. So actually, those kind of all this design, nature design is defined by the maximize the survival rate or maximize to survive this in any conditions, problem solving. So design has to be begin with the definition of the problem. It's very important. Most of the times we now creating lots of images based on the artificial intelligence. They can making a lots of thousands of the images of designs within a second. So we cannot compete with the AI. But what they couldn't do it is definition of the problems. Because defining problem is based on his perspective toward the world or all kinds of the experience and the understanding of the human kind of things. So it's something AI cannot do it for now. Of course, in 20 years, maybe they can do it. But in a way, that's something we have to do it for now. So defining the problems. So I will show you our office work from now on. It's mostly how do we defining the project, the social problems, and how do we kind of give some solution as a prescription for that. The first thing is the problem is the school architecture. When you look at the phone, car, airplane, school, these are the method to creating our contemporary society. But the phone, car, airplane has been changed a lot. But the school is all the same. My parents' school, my school, and my son's school looks all the same. And for the last 40 years in Korea, the actually interior space amount for per students has increased by 7 times, which is very great situation. But the problem is the size of the land is the same, so building is now getting higher and higher. So now we only have preserved a small amount of the playground and making a 4-story high building in an L shape. That's very typical design for the school in Korea. But amazingly, the left one is the prison and the right one is a school. And also those two buildings are surrounded by the fence, and the people who overclimbing the fence causes a serious problem. So actually we creating the public school more like a prison. It's more like some poultry farm. Whenever they go into the elementary school, it's the same classroom. And then goes to the second grade, same classroom. Goes to middle class, the middle school, same classroom. High school, same classroom. For the 12 years, they spend the same times in the same classroom. They are kept inside. And because they spend the 12 years here, when they come out after the graduation, when they choose the house, they choose the apartment easily. And when they die, they goes here. So basically, from the beginning to the end, we always spend our time in a uniform space. So that's really sad thing. And nowadays in Korea, they have a school uniform and the same plate and the same food supplied by the government. Actually, in Korea, there is the place who have with the same uniform, same plate, with the same food supplied by the government is school and prison and the military. So we create very kind of, and I don't understand, we create a very unified space. So because we want to making an equal society, but the way of achieve this goal is wrong. In Korean society, we achieve this goal through the uniformity. So that's why 4 different cities have look same, and all these 4 different brands of the apartment look same. And your house and my house look same. The problem is the value of our house is based on the price. That's the worst thing. If you make a uniform space, a homogeneous space, then our values are based on the quantification, not the qualification. So we cannot have our own value over something. So that's really sad thing. So we have to stop doing the uniformity and we're making a diversity. That's the goal. And another school problem in terms of architecture, we have a very high, the 4-story height, the school buildings. But as you know, we spend the 15 minutes in the classroom and the 10 minutes break time. But nobody is going to the playground in the ground level, going down 4 stories and then spend a couple of minutes and it goes up. So that's why every student spend their time in the classroom and the hallway for 12 years. So we make school and a lower stories building. So and then luckily nowadays the number of students are decreasing in Korea. So we have a lots of empty classroom. So I suggested that they demolish all the classroom and they make a terrace so they can go outside within the 10 minutes. And the study reveals that the people living in the low-rise buildings have 3 times as many friends as those living in high-rise buildings. You might have this question. I always wondering that why the innovative companies like Facebook, Google, Amazon happens in California instead of New York State. And I saw these studies that maybe this is the reason. The Steve Jobs is a really shitty personality, because he was grown up in California. California has an earthquake. That's why they have a single or second story height house condition. That's why he go outside and making friends. That's why he met the Wozniak and opens their Apple company. What if the Steve Jobs raised in the Manhattan? He might be a very problem maker. So where we spend the time in the childhood defining the future of the one person, or sometimes they defines the future of the society. This is very important, especially the school space is very important. So I have a chance to design the school, elementary school, kindergarten, middle school, high school at the same time with the park. So my main idea was to bring out the playground and move in the middle of the park. So they can play soccer surrounded by the trees. And they're making lots of the walkways and the jogging course. They can choose whatever they want in the campus. And because we don't have a playground inside of the school, we can have a much larger space, the ground. So we can make the lower story house and make it into the different pieces. So theoretically, in the first grade, they spend the triangular shaped courtyard. And when they goes up to the second grade, they spend the time in the playground with a pond. In the third grade, they spend the time on the trees and the red colored roof. So whenever they changing and goes up to the next level, they have given the different space and that they can create different memories. And basically the whole idea was bring the nature back to the students. Because we learn knowledge from the book and we learn wisdom from nature. So we need more nature in the school. And there was some other studies showing that if the students spend the time in 2.6 meter ceiling height classroom, in terms of the creativity, if they compare 2.6 meter height ceiling classroom students and then to the 3.3 meter ceiling height classroom students, the 3 meter ceiling height classroom students has a twice as bigger in terms of the creativity. So 40 centimeters of the space changing that huge differences. So we have to making a classroom ceiling height a little bit higher and a diverse shape of the ceiling. I spend the time in the apartment and the house, sometimes in house and sometimes apartment. But when I recall my memory, I don't feel that apartment it's a house or home feeling. Because apartment building is too big compared to the human scale. Our school is also too big. It's like 580 times bigger than human scale. We have to minimize that scale into the house scale, like 50 times. And when they making a site plan, we shouldn't do the uniformity site plan. It has to be break down into different shapes and the different rotation. So they can create in different types of the courtyard. So students can just walking couple of minutes and walking 10 or 15 minute meter walk, they can have a different view. But now we have the looks same, the playground and L-shaped building, that's just all the same for 12 years. So this is how it ends up with the sketches, and then we built like this. I wasn't that happy because the building is still too big to me. So for the next project, I break down into the smaller one. This is the middle school, the private middle school. So I make it more like the house type, the single story or second story in the different shapes of the playground, the courtyard. But I wasn't so happy because I want to making it into some green surface of the yard, but the teachers don't like that idea. They wanna keep all controlling all the garden works. So but anyway, if we set up this kind of structure, maybe who knows, in 5 years or 10 years, the graduate people just comes in then making us some trees, and we can anytime we can change it. So this is and the second problem is the public space without benches. Whenever I go to some cities, I count the number of the benches. So I go to the New York, and there is 170 benches along the 950 meters of the Broadway. But in the same length in Seoul, I found only 3 benches. So that's the problem, because we walk in the Seoul, and then the leg get tired, and we want to sit somewhere, but there is no benches. So we have to go inside the cafeteria. The Seoul has the biggest number of cafeteria in the world, so which is a shame. That means that we don't have benches. But the problem is, if you're living in this on the right side cities, you have to spend the money to sit down in the city. That means if you are rich people, you can spend the $5 to go into the Starbucks. But if you are not, you have to find the inexpensive cafeteria. That means even though you spend the 10 years in the same city, you don't have a common memories. So they cannot understand each other, and then the conflict is getting bigger and bigger. So actually, during the 1970s and 80s, the Korean people making a common memories based on the TV drama. They watched the TV drama at the same time. That means everybody was watching the same drama. Everybody has the same feeling and emotion. That means that they can communicate or share their emotions. But nowadays, we're always watching the TV through the YouTube or OTT, Netflix. Everybody watching different programs and the different times on. So that's why we cannot share any common emotions. That's why the more and more conflict happening in society. So this thing has to be solved in the common space, which is the offline space. And then we have to give a free space. And the cheapest way to achieve the free space is the bench. So I have a campaign to give more benches to the city. So this is the Tehran Road, which is more like a Wall Street in Seoul, the most expensive rental fee area in Seoul. And we installed 50 benches. I designed one of them. And this is the 2 separate chairs sitting on the same rail. So we can just put together working as a bench, or each bench is rotating, so they can choose whatever they want to see, or sometimes they can sit by or looking at each other, something like that. So that is defined by the people. The second project is the 3 parks. I had a chance to design some flagship store for the Samsung Electric in the Gangnam area. They have a headquarters in Gangnam. So I introduced 3 different parks. Basically, I introducing some pocket park for the people and for the public. So they can go here and then take a rest and then just go inside. They can see all this kind of Samsung Electric materials and enjoy the space with the technology. And then when they goes up to the top of the podium, they enjoy the rooftop cafeteria. So this is another free space to stay. And then another project is the wind fence. This building is located along the seaside, so they can command a great view of the sea. But if the client locating the building like this, they can maximize the sea. But the problem is the people on the alleyway in the back, they cannot see the sea view. So I convinced the client to divide it into small pieces of architecture and then making some kind of pocket park and alleyway space so people can just penetrating without paying any money to use this space. And then also they can see all the sea views. So, and on the top, there is a stair goes down to the seashore, so they can penetrate in this space and then goes to enjoy the seaside. And because we have some empty rooftop, so those spaces open to the public, so they can go taking a stair to the top of the roof and then enjoy the scene without paying any coffee. So that's the whole idea. The third problem I want to solve is the complex functions. In most of times, the architect was given very complex programs. So in my case, the Mogakdong project is I have to build a cafeteria and some pension. It's more like a small kind of hotel. And the room is only like 4 or 8 rooms. So very small project. So what I did was the problem is it was in the middle of right in front of the bus stop. So I'm making some wall surrounding it. So and then making a hole, and then that kind of partition is rotating, so it changed some permeability of the wall, the fence. So they can control the outside scenery, and this can be closed or open. And sometimes that the rotation wall is in the middle of the pension, so they can open or close. When they close at night, they can use it as a screen, and during the daytime, they can open it and see the cafeteria. So this kind of couple of numbers of the rotating wall can controlling the relationship among the people. The next problem is the drawback of high-rise office building. When the company is flourishing and then they build a new headquarters building, such as the 20-story high building, that means the community is divided into 20. Nobody wants to go to another floors by using the staircase or elevator. So that's a really problem. So I wanna making this problem solved by the family-like office building, like a papsan, we call it like a dinner table. We are sitting surrounding this dinner table and looking at each other and then have a discussion. So this building project is a JYP Entertainment Headquarters. So the entertainment headquarters, the problem is that we are given so many diverse kinds of the rooms. For example, there is a very small room, one singer have a practicing personally, and there is some bigger room for practicing dance as a group. And some composer have to spend their time in their personal room, or sometimes the engineer needs some bigger room, and sometimes a foreign composer comes to visit here, and also CEO and CFO and all the middle class officers, and all kinds of things. So the problem is if you're making a very typical square, like the inside of this room is actually no wind and no light. So what I did was we're making a 12-meter width, very lean, linear ribbon types of the floor plan. And because the site is kind of diamond shape, we making this kind of shape. And also the bigger size rooms actually have a cantilever structure and toward the courtyard. So that create some different sense of a space. So when you look at the dining table, there is a food. That's the actually attraction to actually attract the people to have a communicate. So I think in the headquarters, it has to be the nature, because nature is more and more important in the common era. So the people get gathering along the courtyard area, and that becomes this shape. So every room is toward the courtyard, and the different size of the rooms creating the balcony area, that becomes some resting zone for the interior space, and they goes out and they can communicate each other. And even though they space inside, they stay in the inside, they can see this kind of communication space. And in the JYP headquarters, there is some space for the fans. There are lots of fans visiting this place. So we making some cafeteria on the left side, And the right side is the secured area occupied by the artist. So we making some kind of a water channel, which is a very shallow one, and divided two pieces. But at certain point at one event, the fan meeting event, they just drain some of the water. They're making some plaza area, but still very narrow water channel still existing and dividing the space. This is the outside view, and in the middle there is some swimming pool, but it's gone. Actually, the weather is not that great, and this is the outside view. And the inside, there is the top of the arch space is, we call it Promising Hill, interior garden space. So they can enjoy the nature during the winter time. And the fifth program is the car-centric cities. In the early 20th centuries, the architecture is affected by the two machines. The one is the elevator and the second is the car. Because of the elevator, we can create the multi-story high buildings, like a 30-story high-rise buildings. And because of the car, every road can change it into the straight lines. And the distances between intersections is getting bigger and bigger. When you look at the wrong, the distance between intersection is like 50 meters. But when you go to the New York, the intersection between the distance is like sometimes 120 or 250 meters. But in Seoul, it becomes the 800 meters. Because the speed of the transportation is higher and higher, the intersection distance is getting bigger. So that creates the cities with more energy consuming cities. So, and then also, break down the community into small pieces. So each this kind of road network creating the people's lifestyle in the city. So this is, it is very important. Whenever you design some cities, the first thing is what kind of the pattern of the road network, the figure ground, The figure ground is really important thing, the first setting. And the second thing is the building height. Those two factors defines the lifestyle in the city. So I have a chance to design smart city for the Hyundai Motor Group. So this is the shape of the group, and then I want to share some of the images.
우리의 삶의 터전, 지구. 최근 100년간 우리는 자연의 영역을 침범하며 인간의 영역을 확장해 왔습니다. 이로 인해 지구는 심각한 문제들을 마주하게 되었습니다. 이제 우리가 고민해야 할 것은 자연에 맞서는 법이 아니라 공존하는 법입니다. 우리는 자연과 공존하며 살아갈 수 있는 지속가능한 지구를 만들기 위한 도시를 연구했습니다. 복잡하게 얽혀있는 건축물들을 높이와 밀도에 따라 고밀도, 중밀도, 저밀도 3개의 구역으로 배치하고 벌집 구조에서 영감을 얻은 육각형의 구조로 도시를 확장하면 인간에 의한 개발 영역은 최소화되고 자연을 품은 도시가 완성됩니다. 도시 확장으로 인해 자연이 훼손되는 것을 최소화하는 컴팩트 시티는 도시민들의 수많은 생활 방식을 밀도 있게 수용할 수 있으며 나아가 다양한 지형과 환경에 유연하게 대응할 수 있는 도시 플랫폼입니다. 이것이 현대 모토그룹이 그리는 스마트 시티입니다. HMG 스마트 시티. HMG 스마트 시티는 인간을 존중하는 도시입니다. 하나의 도시 모듈은 6km 직경 속에 30만 명의 인구를 수용할 수 있고 도시의 확장에 유연하게 대응하면서 개발 영역을 최소화합니다. 도시의 다양한 삶을 반영하기 위해 고밀도, 중밀도, 저밀도 3개의 구역으로 구분된 HMG 스마트 시티는 도시민의 생활이 편리하도록 다양한 인프라를 혼합하여 배치합니다. 건축 밀도가 높고 이동 속도가 가장 빠른 고밀도 구역에는 도시의 랜드마크와 의료 거점 인프라를 두고 고밀도, 중밀도 구역 사이에는 선형적인 형태의 공원으로 자연을 들여옵니다. 도시 어느 곳에서나 접근이 용이한 중밀도 구역에는 안전 거점 인프라를, 가장 보행 친화적인 저밀도 구역에는 교육, 문화 거점 인프라를 배치하고 운동시설과 근린공원으로 활용되는 자연이 연결됩니다. 이곳 스마트시티에서는 어느 곳에서나 탁 트인 자연을 볼 수 있는 종합권이 확보되고 사람들은 보행 친화적인 도시를 누리며 3분 안에 자연과 만날 수 있습니다. 하나의 도시 안에서 다양한 경험이 이루어질 수 있도록 전 세계 여러 도시 형태를 9개의 영역으로 나누어 적용한 HMG 스마트 시티는 사람 중심의 도시 경험을 선사해줍니다. HMG 스마트 시티는 자연과 공존하는 도시입니다. 도시는 무분별한 개발 영역을 최소화하는 대신 거대한 자연을 품습니다. 자연을 그대로 보존하는 중심부의 보존 구역으로부터 캠핑공원, 휴양림공원, 그린공원이 이어지면서 도시민들은 다양한 모습으로 자연을 누릴 수 있습니다. 도시의 수분가는 저류지로서의 기능과 함께 다양한 물줄기로 생태계를 연결하여 자연을 정화하고 환경을 보호합니다. 리아스식 해안과 같은 도시 경계부는 도시와 자연이 최대한 많이 만날 수 있게 하며 도시의 자연은 생태 통로를 통해 다른 도시의 자연과 연결됩니다. 친환경 소재인 목재를 활용하는 도시의 건축은 환경 오염을 줄이고 지속 가능한 건축물을 만듭니다. 이렇게 HMG 스마트 시티는 자연과 공존하며 탄소 중립의 도시를 구현합니다.
네, 여기까지. Okay, so we have a much slide to show. So the next problem is a housing structure that isolate family members. In the previous in traditional Korean house, when we have stay in the master bedroom, they open the window and they can see across the yard. They can see some interior or the windows of the other rooms, so they can see each other. But in a modern apartment, every windows from the room is facing the outside. There is no window among rooms. So that's because because of that, the people who move to here, the discussion or conversation among families are decreased. So that's another problem of the fragmentation of the individuality. So our solution is the adding windows connecting rooms. So first project is a kangaroo house. This is a house stays the parents and then the son's family. So two generations stay in the same house. So I want to making these two houses in the more independent way. So the hallway, make a hallway more like an alleyway. So whenever move to one room to another room, this kind of the multi-connecting alleyways making some kind of urban context kind of feeling. So for example, I go down to the ground level, but I can see the people just passing by here, something like that. And also I introduced the very narrow gardens in the middle of the house, the courtyard, because it's a very narrow. So the people can, the second floor, the son cannot look at the master bedroom, but the people actually can see the courtyard from the first floor master bedroom and the second floor the son's bedroom, but they cannot see each other. But the central zone is the kitchen area. This is where the people get together to have a dinner or lunch. So the central zone of the modern house is the dining table. So this is a multi-story building space. So everybody can see and look down. But then in Korea, there is some very critical relationship between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. It's a very conflicting situation. So they want to keep a certain distance. But as I said before, the higher level look-down position is the higher ranking space. So I locating the daughter-in-law in the second floor and then looking down. But the mother-in-law, when she went to the kitchen, the daughter-in-law can spies. So those kind of relationship is very, there's something I want to change in. So, and the next one is the multi-terrace house. And this is the house for the parents and the one daughter and the one son. So everybody has their own bedroom. So inside of the room, they share, they can stay in a private space, but whenever they go outside of the terrace, they can see each other. So that different shapes of the terrace condition, making a different kind of feeling. And of course, in the inside, there is the void space. So some windows looking down the living room area, and also the window can see the other rooms. And in the top floor, third floor, the master bedroom have a bay window, so they go outside through the window. They can look down the other floor's terrace, so they can stay inside. Of course, they have another terrace on the side for the wife and for the husband separately. So this is another kind of a controlling relationship by using the terrace. And another project is the applied villa. I mean, the client really wants to have this kind of a cottage-style Korean traditional, which is a curved line roof. I mean, he is obsessed with the curved line. So what he asked me is design something with a curved roof space. And the site is so long, 50-meter long, and across the site, there was a mountain view. So what I did was making some folding elevations and maximize the window surface. And then on the top, I put the roof, so making this kind of shape. But then as you can see, I folded the facade surface, so that means when you go to the window side, they can see other rooms' window. So this is the view of the mother's working with the workshop place. I mean, she stays in his workshop place, but she can still see the other two children's window. Of course, the children can stay inside, but she go outside. She can have a feeling, sense of connecting with the mother. That was the idea. And this is some three-dimensional kind of curved shapes with lots of balconies and the communication with the nature. And then the roof shape bring into the ceiling, so they can have this curved space fence. The next problem is the absence of park. I mean, we have lots of green spaces in Seoul. The problem is the distribution of the park is wrong. Because we have a very big park, so distance between park is 4 kilometers, which means they can spend 1 hour walking from A park to the B park, which means that we have to take a subway or by car to reach the park. That's why whenever we go to the park in Korea, there is only the retired people. The young people cannot go to the park because it's so separate. But in Manhattan, every park is distributed every 10 or every 1 kilometers, which means they can connecting parks within 13 minutes walk. But we have lots of green spaces in the apartment complex. As you know, the 60% of the housing is apartment, and there is a lots of the green space inside of the apartment complex. But the problem is the blocked by the fence, so people cannot go inside. It's not open to the public. And previously, in traditional house, there is a nature as a courtyard. But now, moved to the apartment, there was a balcony, but now we utilize the balcony as an interior space. There is no outdoor space in our housing. So there is no actually nature in our housing space. So our solution is apartment with a yard-like balconies. The Apel Hangang project, they have a really complex regulations. So we have to set back the building as it goes up. So the section of the building looks like this. So because of that, actually thanks to these regulations, we can creating different size and different shapes of the balconies. So this building has more than 2 meter width of the balcony without the roof. And then we introducing some kind of planting area and put some trees, so making more like a yard. So we can see the changes of the weather, the seasons, like this. And also they can go outside, they can have a sense of community space. And thanks to the complex regulation, every unit, this 27 units have all different floor plans. So this kind of diversity have a sense of a uniqueness of each unit. And also this has the windows looking at each other in the inside space. And like this. Luckily, lots of the rich people comes here. For example, the BTS member buy this, and some actor in the Dokkaebi, the Gongyu actually buy this house. house is occupied by some movie stars or entertainment people, so which is a very special experience. And the next one is the bring these ideas into some middle class house. So this is a newly redevelopment project in Yeouido area. So we're making a 50-story high building, and we want to introduce the balconies in this house as well. And on the top, there is a community space which is connecting through them by bridge, the three of them. And at the basement, the commercial area is actually connected through the outdoor stairs and then reaching to the park by the river. And every house has the apartment under the 20-story height. And the lower level house has the balcony, but the location of the balcony is different. Sometimes it's connecting with the kitchen, or sometimes in the living room, or sometimes in the master bedroom. So they can choose the floor plans. And on the top, above the 21st floor and up to the 50th floor, it's really the windy and dangerous to go outside. So instead of the balcony, we want to making a panoramic view. Instead of this kind of window, we're making a split windows so we can borrow the window, the room next. So actually we can have a wider the view of this site. And another terrace house. I know that I'm obsessed with the terrace. So this is another terrace, a Hyunjoon terrace house in Songdo, which is very near to the Incheon International Airport. And every unit has the terrace. The whole idea was, as I said before, the old apartment in the house, the Korean apartment has a huge ground floor garden, but it's not open to the public. This building has the open to the public, and the Piloti garden space is actually continuously to the museum next to it, and becomes the roof, and reaching to the library area. So this whole complex becomes a one piece of a park after they finish it. Of course, because the developer gave this park to the city, they have a chance to buy this land in a very cheap price. That's the exchange between two. And the next problem is the modern life distance from the nature. So I want to make some house with the maximize the connection with the nature. This project name is Hongik, which is my weekend house in Jeju Island. Jeju Island is the volcano island. And then whenever I go to the Jeju Island, every point you can see the horizon of the sea. And architecturally, the very unique character of Jeju Island is they use lots of basalt, which is the rock made of lava. There are lots of airspace. So this is, they can create lots of the fences in the cultivated area, just like this. So I want to making some facade fence and the horizontal. So this is the building. And to maximize introducing the sunlight to the yard, I just making a one-story, single-story height building, and then making a zigzag shape of the floor plans to maximize the surface of the window. So instead of the rectangular, I have the shape of the right. So increase the surface length from 45 meters to 90 meters. And I locate the people inside of this house in a different situation, sometimes on the top of the roof, or sometimes in the floor, or sometimes in the sunken area, and sometimes in the swimming pool. So this is the floor plan. And every corner has a different viewpoint and a different condition with the nature. So this is a living room area, and all the interior space is made of concrete, and that color actually is so bright, so they capture the shadow of the tree. It's more like an oriental painting. So by the sunlight and the trees, they're creating ever-changing oriental painting on the floor. That was the whole idea. And every corner has a different concept of the garden. And this is the master bedroom, and moss garden, and rectangular shape. And this is very important. I always want to make some shower place. Shower place has to open to the nature, so like a naked in the nature feeling. So I make this, but my wife of course doesn't like that idea. So I had to making a smart glass to blocking this view and then making a more private space. And I think the toilet is very important. It's a really great place for the contemplation. So instead of having windows toward the outside garden, they have a skylight, sunlight from the top, and every light from the above creating very meditating space. That's why all the religious space have the lighting from the above. And this is the jacuzzi, and they're the same as the swimming pool level, and then the guest house is maybe 50 centimeters sunken. So they can see the garden from a different level, like an ant perspective. Next is a gridscape. Gridscape is just another balcony space for the lawyer's office. The lawyers has their own individual office room, and then every room has the balcony, and that creates the different kind of feeling of the facade. I believe that this is more the live and more some energetic urban facade. Another balcony project for some summer production. And the shape of this balcony was defined by the regulations, the same as the Apera Hongik project. The proportions and the length of the balcony is changing, so that defines the characteristics of the space inside. This is it. And the staircase is I introduced the sunlight. And another balcony project, and this is changing the surface. Sometimes they can choose the open or close, so they can change this scenery like this. The next one is some storage museum in the Seoul area, Gangnam. Actually, I spent 1.5 years in the military base here. It was the mountain before, but now the military base moved out and then they turned into the office complex building. So they cut out of the ground a lot. So this site is, on the right side is where I spent 1.5 years. But now they have a 16-meter bearing wall because they have to excavate the ground and they're making a flat ground. So what I did was, even though we're making museums, we have to keep some space for the trees, which is expelled from this site. So I call it the apartment for trees, the tree apartment. And between the tree apartment and the museum, there is some gap, and that becomes some resting place for the museum visitors. They can just go outside and take a rest and then go back to the museum. And the most important idea was there was a park above the surrounding area, but this building is working as a connector from the intersection of the urban context to the park. So they can overcome 15-meter height bearing wall height by penetrating this museum. So they can just go inside of this museum without paying any tickets price. So whenever they go to the park, they can actually visit the museum every time they go. So this is the way of maximize the use of the museum. And the next one is the church isolate people. As you know, the church has to invite lots of people to their facility, but most of the times the church has a door and closed, so nobody can go inside. So my idea was about churches, how do we making more kind of inviting characters of the church. So the thing is, when you hug somebody, we're making some curved shape of our arm. So this whole building is a curved facade. So they can actually hugging the pedestrians. And at the ground level, we're making some eave space. They can just easily go inside under the eave and then go to the ground level, the cafeteria, which is open to the public. So this is a kind of a living room for the community. So anybody who is not a Christian, then they can go inside and they spend their time. That's very important thing. So same ideas about the Somang Church, which is the most expensive area in Seoul. We call it Apgujeongdong. This area is very expensive, and this church is right in the middle of the most expensive land. And then they spend lots of space for the parking lot. So I suggested turn the parking lot into the park. So all the community people, the people neighborhood, actually using this park, which is the natural ground, so they can grow big trees, so they can spend the time in the cafeteria right next to this yard. So and the same ideas apply to the small project in Songsil Church, and this one is the smaller version of that idea. It is a very old church, but we're renovating it, introducing the little ground and give them to the neighborhood. The last one is what should be preserved. I think you have a same problem when you have a building in the Bangkok in some old town area, and we always facing the problem what has to be preserved. And sometimes we want to preserve the building, but I believe that I think the alleyway shape is more important than the building itself. So here, the village tower is we kept the shape of the village, the alleyway. We demolished all the buildings, but we introducing the smaller scale, the buildings on the ground level up to the 4th floor. And then on the top of that, we introducing the 25th floor office building on the top of it. So it basically looks like this. From the ground level, pedestrians just recognize in the lower level buildings. So it feels like a very friendly neighborhood kind of thing. And then there is an alleyway in the middle, so they can just go penetrating this building and connecting the alleyways. But on the top is of course a very functional office on the top. So we can achieve. I mean, we can catch the two rabbits at the same time. That's the architect's rule. If we have a very creative and the right solution, we can achieve two at the same time. And for the last, this is another Samsung project, and this is the end of it. (1960년대) 설립된 삼성전자 수원 디지털 시티는 2000년대 이후 첨단 R&D 캠퍼스로 발전해왔습니다. 우리는 13,000평 대지 위에 연면적 15만 평의 도시를 어떻게 담을지 고민했습니다. 바로 320m, 세로 140m의 주어진 사이트와 하나의 포디움과 두 개의 타워로 구성되는 기존 계획 안에 변화를 담았습니다. 인접해 있던 타워 간의 거리를 벌리고 우측 타워를 회전시켜 타워 간의 시야를 확보할 수 있게 합니다. 확장된 포디움 옥상은 R6의 중요한 스카이 센트럴 파크가 됩니다. 1층의 미디어 스퀘어는 중앙공원과 연결되고 인간과 회사가 만나는 관계의 공간이 됩니다. 포디움의 중점은 내부 공간과 자연이 소통하게 하고 지하 1층에서 지상 6층까지 햇빛을 들여옵니다. 중점과 연결된 출입구는 직원들의 출퇴근 통로가 됩니다. 포디움 옥상에 배치된 인피니티 수영장과 스카이 센트럴 파크는 인간과 자연이 만나는 중요한 장소가 됩니다. 타워의 8층부터 10층까지 테라스를 조성하여 스카이 센트럴 파크와 연결되고 타워 벽면의 수직 녹화와 포디움의 외부바다는 도시적 측면에서 랜드마크가 됩니다. 타워문은 창의적 사고가 가능한 복층 공간과 스탠드 계단이 연속적으로 적층되어 스파이럴 시스템이 되고 직원들이 모이도록 자연스럽게 유도하면서 인간과 인간의 관계를 제공합니다. 뉴욕의 맨하튼은 인구 밀도에 대항한 도시 계획이 잘 된 도시 중 하나입니다. 도시 구성 조직은 한 곳에 모여 있지 않고 곳곳에서 다양한 크기와 형태로 작동합니다. R6는 하나의 오피스 빌딩이 아닌 도시로서 작동하도록 다양한 크기와 형태의 구성 조직을 건물 곳곳에 배치하였습니다. 저희가 제안하는 다양한 관계가 창조되는 삼성 일렉트릭시티의 모습입니다. Okay, that was it. So, if you want to hear more about me, and then from me, this is my YouTube channel. So please go there and then follow it. There's a lot of videos or actually have an English subtitle. And that was it.
Okay, so we give some big.
Thank you.
Yeah, very famous YouTuber as well. Professor, you already have a subscriber here from our school. Thank you very much. What I thought about is he's very Korean. He's also very fast, like a moving slide. So I thought like no time to take photo, right? But I really appreciate the amount of the project and contents you prepared for us. I think it's really insightful and also valuable for all of us. So I want to open the floor for a question to our audience. So maybe because we are running out of time, maybe a couple of questions. Anyone? Yes.
Hello. Hi, Professor. Thank you for your very informative lecture. So I am a master's student here in this faculty, and recently I came across a piece of literature where the author mentioned we're envisioning high-rise architecture as stacked communities, and I sort of saw some similarities in the work, especially in the last project that you showed, right? So I don't know if that's possible, but have you ever thought about how it might come across in a project where there isn't say something where the brief is to create a rentable space or some offices or apartments or something like that? How in such when the project brief is something like generated like that, how have you ever thought about how you might approach some project like that to, like, you know, make sure that the outcome is not some sort of repetitive very homogenized architecture of like a high-rise project, something like that?
I'm not sure I understand correctly.
Sorry, can I repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Sorry. So in the last project, that is something I really found very interesting is that how you approach the architecture to be not like a repetitive flow plate all across in like a high-rise project, right?
Yeah.
So, but when the brief of a project is sometimes to be something like that, how would you approach to make sure that, you know, it's not a homogenized repetition of a flow plate?
It depends on the project. It depends on the client,
right?
Because every project has a different regulations and also the budget issues.
Right.
So that's why sometimes I'm making a very functional project and on the top, and just making some kick at the bottom. And then what I'm trying to do is that at least one corner of the building has to be very different things. Yeah. So you don't have to making a whole, always making a very special and all kind of a gaudy, like a very impressive building. Of course, that's the beauty of the architecture. Architecture is not art to me, because it cannot be working as satisfying me. It's not about me. It's about the solving problem with the creative ideas. Because there is lots of some constraint in every project. And how do we draw one single creative ideas out of that condition? That was the issue.
So I see. All right. Thank you very much.
So I want to ask about the percentage of the green space that we need to have on, like, we have like apartments, we have school, we have like some open space of like Samyamita, which is like shopping mall. What is the at least percentage that need to have the green space? And moreover, I want to ask about the balcony, because as I see the design, they have their big balcony or they have like their other shape of balcony, and I want to know that why they have like different shape and what it's for. Is for like for sunlight to go through, or I want to know the reason.
Different shape is actually defined by the law architecture regulations. Because I don't like the intuitive design, like a Frank Gehry kind of things. I design like this because of my feeling is like this. I mean, that's not satisfying me because I want to making a very diverse shape or diverse solution, but based on the regulations or constraints. Because the creative is also, I mean, every constraint is the starting point of the creative solution. I love the City Corp Bank in Manhattan. I mean, I'm encouraging, if you don't know that building, I encourage you to visit this website and take a look at the New York section. So that shows a lots of constraint. There is a church at the corner, and the regulation, some kind of things, and the structure constraint kind of things. And an architect has a great solution. I mean, to solving. It's like a Michael Jordan to penetrating through the 4 different players to making a layup shoot. So architects has to be that attitude.
Thank you for very inspiring and the lectures and a lot of the beautiful work. Congratulations on that. The question is actually maybe not the right question, but just wonder. You think that you are lucky that have these clients, particularly a lot of works that you know from the high rise, you bring it down, and then you moving a lot of things. And for me, it's a lot of economics in relate. So you think you kind of lucky in terms of that and how you approach that.
Oh yeah, of course I'm lucky. I mean, I didn't have this chance to have this kind of project until like 52 years old. I mean, I spent like 15 years with a no-name office, and luckily, it's really. I mean, maybe this is a good lesson to you guys because as a young student, I was very ambitious. I want to be a great architect. Like Renzo Piano or Richard Rogers, they won the international competition and they become a global architect when they are 30s. That's my goal. But I didn't have that kind of chance. I didn't have any project until any significant project until like 48 or 49 something. But there was no project. But at that time, some people asked me to write a newspaper column, which is a short version. But I have no money, so I need to buy my own some kind of side income. So I write the columns, and the newspaper liked that I did the columns, so they suggest me to the regular columns in every week, and the press, what is it, the book publishing company, saw the column and asked me to make a book, and then I published the book, and the what is it, the production company, the broadcasting company, they invited me to the lecture series, and it becomes some very entertainment program, and then suddenly I become a very famous figure in Korea, and then now they try to give me the chance to design this thing. So I know that always there is a second best comes to me, and all the accumulation of the second best becomes the best. So I didn't expect this kind of career passage in my life. I never thought about to become a YouTuber, but that happens. But at the same time, I mean, that all kinds of the book writer and the lecturer and the TV show programmer and whatever, and there's one goal. I mean, how can I get an opportunity to design building? So that's why. Yeah.
Famous first.
Yeah, actually that works. Yeah.
Get famous.
It's really easy to convince the client as well. Of course, the Samsung Electric is really bad season nowadays. So the last project is old because it is most expensive project. So it was invited to competition. We won the competition, but the budget was actually beyond the limits. So they hold this project. And I studied another Samsung project, which is education facility. So maybe that will happen. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. And also, once again, thank you, Professor Yu, for the really nice lecture. So I want to conclude and also want to remind everyone about this is the part of our faculty's lecture series, Architecture and Design for Society 2024. And can we move to another slide? Yes. Yeah, so I have to also advertise. Next week, we're gonna have the superstar architect of Thailand from Land Process. The three people. I have to be honest that I practice to pronounce the name correctly, but I'm still not confident, so I will say the company's name from the Land Process. The lecture is titled is Global and Local Climate Adaptation, Nature-Based Solution for Urban Adaptability. Next week, Wednesday, same time, same location. So please don't forget, and I would like to see everyone's next week. Okay, so a little bit more information. We can say the updates, the knowledge management activity for this lecture series on our faculty's website and also YouTube channel. And before you leave, please take a moment here to scan the QR codes displayed on the screen here and complete the satisfaction survey. Your feedback will be very invaluable and help us to improve the future events. And also for those who registered, snack boxes are available for the collection at the registrations on the lower floor. So please don't forget. Lastly, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Nippon Paint, Sakutai, and also Woodmark for the generous support. Lastly, Korean Cultural Center, who offer this amazing opportunity. We will play the short set of sponsor clips, and thank you all for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next lecture. Thank you very much.